A genius physicist with zero social skills, his best friend stuck between logic and life, and a neighbor who changed everything. The Big Bang Theory wasn't just a sitcom, it was a phenomenon. But years later, what happened to the cast? Let's find out. Number 1. Jim Parsons as Sheldon Cooper. From the very moment the door of apartment 4A swung open, Sheldon Cooper entered sitcom history as a genius mind helpless before the world of emotions. And Jim Parsons, then 34 years old, transformed that eccentricity into the immortal soul of the series. From the first season in 2007, Sheldon lived by an absolute schedule. The obsessive 3 knocks, unshakable seating rules, cold wars with Penny, and intellectual battles with Leonard that made every episode feel like a chess match of minds. Through each season, audiences witnessed him go from a man afraid of touch and resistant to change to someone brave enough to love Amy, brave enough to propose in the night, brave enough to break his fears to hold a wedding, and finally, alongside Amy, reached the Nobel Prize in Physics in the 2019 finale. One of the deepest and most cinematic character arcs in the modern sitcom era. The role stood out because Jim did not simply portray intelligence, but made Sheldon's loneliness, childishness, and need to be loved heartbreakingly real. In real life, after the show, Parsons continued to flourish on stage and in production, while the story of his openly acknowledged marriage to Todd Spiewak made his mature image even more admired. The biggest drama was his decision to leave the series, indirectly closing the show at its peak. In 2026, Jim Parsons is 53 years old, still the irreplaceable symbol of Sheldon. Looking back, that bazinga now echoes like the voice of an entire era of youth for both television and its audience. Number 2. Johnny Galecki as Leonard Hofstadter. If Sheldon is the brain of this universe, Leonard Hofstadter is its heart, and Johnny Galecki, at age 32 when the show premiered, brought to life a man who was brilliant yet always lived with insecurity. From his slightly hunched shoulders and cautious glances toward Penny, to the many moments he helplessly endured life with his genius roommate. Leonard entered the series as an experimental physicist psychologically controlled by his mother since childhood, but that very fact made his journey rich with emotion, patiently pursuing Penny through disastrous dates, jealousy, breakups, reunions, a proposal in the car, marriage in Las Vegas, and then a second wedding celebration with friends. Interwoven through it all was his enduring friendship with Sheldon, where Leonard was always the one cleaning up the chaos. From roommate agreements to pulling Sheldon back to reality whenever he drifted too far. The appeal of the role lies in Leonard representing the ordinary audience standing among geniuses, the emotional anchor of the entire group. After the show ended, Galecki lived more privately, focusing on production and family. The most memorable real-life drama was his secret romance with Kaley Cuoco during the show's early years, a relationship that made the on-screen Penny-Leonard chemistry feel even more authentic. In 2026, Johnny is 50 years old, still remembered as the guy with the laser pointer and the most sincere heart in Pasadena. Perhaps the most beautiful thing about Leonard is that amid all the scientific chaos, he never stopped believing in love. Number 3. Kaley Cuoco as Penny. The blonde girl stepping out from the apartment across the hall did not just change Leonard and Sheldon's lives. She changed the heartbeat of the entire series. Kaley Cuoco, only 21 at the time, brought into Penny the radiant energy of youth, freedom, emotional instinct, and a very real-world beauty that perfectly contrasted with the world of formulas. From a waitress at the Cheesecake Factory dreaming of becoming an actress, Penny gradually became the emotional center of the group, teaching Sheldon empathy, pulling Leonard out of his shell of insecurity, and standing between the arguments of Howard, Rauch, and later even Amy. Her journey stretches from awkward dates with Leonard, tearful breakups, fear of marriage, the turning point into the pharmaceutical industry, all the way to becoming Leonard's wife and pregnant in the ending, a character arc both feminine and powerful. The role stands out because Penny is the bridge between mainstream audiences and the nerd world, making every scientific story feel warm and relatable. After the show, Kaley exploded with many new projects. Her personal life was also full of Wikipedia-documented drama, secretly dating Johnny Galecki, 2 failed marriages, the 2010 horseback riding accident that broke her leg, and then another engagement with Tom Pelfrey after having a daughter. In 2026, Kaley is 40 years old, still carrying the radiant charm of the Penny everyone remembers. When people think back on The Big Bang Theory, the image of the girl holding a glass of wine in front of apartment 4A still feels like the opening moment of every miracle. Number 4. Simon Helberg as Howard Wolowitz. Without a PhD and without a glamorous appearance, Howard Wolowitz was always the most unpredictable spark plug in the Pasadena friend group. And Simon Helberg, joining the first season in 2007 at age 26, turned an eccentric engineer into the character with the most powerful emotional transformation in the show. In the early days, Howard appeared with his bowl-cut hair, superhero belt, ridiculous pickup lines, and his hilariously pitiful dependence on his mother. He was the one who threw the group into a string of chaotic situations, from the overheating robotic arm and the trip to the space station to wild technology antics with Raj. But over the years, Howard matured dramatically, meeting Bernadette, entering marriage, losing his mother off screen, becoming the father of 2, and gradually letting go of his childish ego to become a man capable of carrying responsibility. This evolution from an annoying clown into an emotionally rich husband is what made the role one of the standout performances of the series. After the show, Simon continued to earn critical praise in film and voice acting, while his private life remained relatively peaceful with his long-lasting marriage to Jocelyn Town since 2007, with few scandals but constant admiration for his transformative talent. In 2026, Simon is 45 years old. Looking back at Howard, people remember the excited screams in NASA's control room, the gentle piano beside Bernadette, and the feeling that the one who once seemed the most immature ended up with the most beautiful coming-of-age journey. Number 5. Kunal Nayyar as Rajesh Koothrappali. There are characters who do not need to say much to be remembered forever, and ironically Raj began precisely by being unable to speak to women, and Kunal Nayyar, entering the show at age 26, turned that insecurity into one of the most lovable storylines in modern sitcom history. Raj appeared as a shy astrophysicist, dependent on Howard in every social outing, trembling whenever Penny entered the room, needing alcohol before he could speak. Yet it was exactly that fragility that made audiences love him from the very beginning. Across 12 seasons, Raj moved through countless emotional stages, from his close friendship with Howard, to the loneliness of watching everyone in the group gradually pair off, to unfinished romances with Lucy, Emily, and then Anu. Every time he seemed close to happiness, he stepped back because of self-doubt or because he idealized love too much. The role stood out because Raj represented a deeply human loneliness inside an otherwise noisy group. The one often overlooked, yet always keeping the softness and emotion of the group alive. In real life, after the success of the show, Kunal expanded into film, books, and theater. The biggest media-covered drama mainly revolved around his divorce from Neha Kapoor after many years together, creating a then and now feeling remarkably similar to Raj himself on screen. In 2026, Kunal is 44 years old, far more mature and calm. In viewers' memories, Raj will forever be the young man looking up at the starry sky, searching for a signal of love of his own in the vast universe. Number 6. Mayim Bialik as Amy Farrah Fowler. Amy Farrah Fowler did not enter The Big Bang Theory like a storm, but like a strange musical note, slow yet powerful enough to completely change Sheldon's heart. And Mayim Bialik, at age 34 when she joined at the end of season 3, brought a rare emotional depth to the second half of the series. Her first appearance came through an online date arranged by Howard and Raj, where Amy was a female Sheldon, cold, logical, and almost incapable of understanding intimacy. Yet through each season, she gradually opened up to Penny and Bernadette, learned how to build female friendships, learned jealousy, pain, and patiently guided Sheldon through the most difficult emotional growth journey of his life. Moments such as their first kiss on the train, the painful breakup, and the reunion through the engagement ring transformed Amy into the greatest emotional pillar of the final era, culminating in the wedding and the Nobel Prize with Sheldon in the finale. The weight of the role comes from the fact that Amy was not just a love interest, but the catalyst that helped Sheldon become a complete human being. In real life, Mayim is actually a real neuroscientist, which made the role even more legendary. After the show, she found success in hosting, books, and podcasts. The most notable real-life drama was her divorce from Michael Stone, along with controversies surrounding her scientific and vaccine-related statements, which repeatedly divided public opinion. In 2026, Mayim is 50 years old, still maintaining an image of intelligence and uniqueness. When people remember Amy, they remember the way she looked at Sheldon on Nobel night, a look proving that love is sometimes the most beautiful experiment of a lifetime. Number 7. Melissa Rauch as Bernadette Rostenkowski-Wolowitz. Bernadette entered the Big Bang Theory without noise, simply with a small smile behind the Cheesecake Factory counter. But from that moment, Melissa Rauch turned what seemed like a gentle character into one of the most powerful sources of energy in the series. When she first appeared in 2009, Melissa was 29 years old, youthful yet already mature enough to make Bernadette both adorable and razor sharp. At first, she was Penny's co-worker, introduced to date Howard, but very quickly this character revealed a weight far beyond a supporting love storyline. From a girl with a childlike sweet voice, Bernadette gradually became a strong woman who pulled Howard out of his immaturity, forced him to grow up, build a family, and endure the loss after Howard's mother died in the show. At every stage, she evolved from a microbiology researcher into a successful woman in the pharmaceutical industry. Then the mother of two, always the one keeping the Wolowitz household steady amid chaos. The role stood out because Bernadette proved that smallness on the outside can hide the strongest will. In real life, Melissa continued to flourish after the show with Night Court, while her personal life remained beautiful with a lasting marriage to Winston Rauch. The biggest emotional drama was her public revelation that she had experienced a miscarriage before welcoming her first child, which made her then and now image even more touching to audiences. In 2026, Melissa is 45 years old. When people remember Bernadette, they always hear that high-pitched voice, both sweet and powerful enough to silence an entire room. Number 8. Kevin Sussman as Stuart Bloom. There are characters born to remain in the background, but Stuart Bloom quietly moved from the corner shadows of the comic book store to an irreplaceable place in the audience's heart, and Kevin Sussman was the one who breathed life into that journey. When he first appeared in season 2 in 2008, Kevin was 37 years old, bringing Stuart a thin, exhausted appearance and eyes that always looked as if he had just missed the last train of his life. At first, Stuart was simply the owner of the comic book store, where the group gathered to debate Star Wars, Flash, or rare collectibles. But gradually he became the embodiment of a very real loneliness, failure in love, the store burning down, living in Howard and Bernadette's house, then step by step finding his confidence again when Denise entered his life. What made Stuart stand out was not the laughter, but the fragility he brought into a world already too bright with geniuses. After the show, Kevin continued appearing in television and screenwriting, with a fairly private life and very few major scandals. That quietness strangely made him resemble Stuart in real life. In 2026, Kevin is 55 years old, still carrying that rare melancholy charm of the American sitcom. Looking back, Stuart feels like an old comic panel forgotten on a shelf, seemingly faded, yet the more you open it, the more you discover an entire lonely and warm heart inside. Number 9. Laura Spencer as Emily Sweeney. Emily Sweeney did not appear as long as the core characters, but every time she stepped into the frame, Raj's atmosphere immediately changed color, and Laura Spencer made that romance the most cinematically distinct relationship of the later seasons. Laura was born in 1986, so when she joined the series in 2013, she was around 27 years old, at the perfect maturity to create an Emily who was both mysterious and seductive. As a dermatologist with a love for horror films and eerie things, Emily completely contrasted Raj's shyness and romantic dreaming, creating a fascinating relationship. Dates in cemeteries, her cold smile at Howard's jokes, and the feeling that Raj was, for the first time, truly drawn to a woman with a stronger personality than his own. Emily was not only a girlfriend, she also represented the period when Raj became more mature in love, daring to confront his fear of abandonment. Even though he ultimately could not hold on to the relationship, the role stood out thanks to a dark romance tone rarely seen in this sitcom. After the show, Laura continued steadily in television and film, with no major personal scandals, maintaining a stable and private image. In 2026, Laura is 39 to 40 years old depending on the time of year. What remains is not the amount of screen time, but the feeling that Emily once made Raj believe that sometimes the most beautiful love comes from the strangest people. Number 10. Sara Gilbert as Leslie Winkle. Before Amy or Bernadette changed the balance of the group, Leslie Winkle was the first person sharp enough to make Sheldon cautious, and Sara Gilbert brought to this character a cold, intelligent, and deeply provocative energy. When the show began in 2007, Sara was 32 years old, entering with the presence of a physicist who was both sharp and unapologetically detached. Leslie was not only Leonard and Sheldon's colleague at Caltech, she was also the one who repeatedly turned Leonard into the center of the early emotional clashes, from their short-lived and highly practical relationship to scientific debates that felt like sword fights, to bluntly calling Sheldon a dumbass, a line that became iconic. Leslie's role was special because because she represented confrontational intelligence, someone not intimidated by Sheldon but rather delighted in piercing his ego, giving the early seasons a very distinct tension. After The Big Bang Theory, Sara continued to succeed with the talk show The Talk and other television projects. The most publicized real-life drama was her divorce from Linda Perry after nearly a decade together, closing one of Hollywood's most famous relationships. In 2026, Sara is 51 years old, still a face of intelligence and strength. Leslie Winkle may not have stayed long, but every time audiences remember the early seasons, they still hear that cold voice echoing like a sharp spark that once lit up the entire emotional laboratory of the series. 10 faces, 10 rhythms of life. From the laughter inside apartment 4A to the real-life changes beyond the screen, The Big Bang Theory is not just a sitcom about geniuses, but the youthful memory of an entire generation of viewers. And by 2026, that echo still has not faded.